Money is not a means of exchange nor a store of value, were that such labels true, if only such depictions had some connection to reality. In earlier discussions the attempt was made to distinguish money from currency. The division has some justification, but it is a difficult language to maintain over time in this culture. Yet, we cannot talk about money rationally without understanding there is two kinds of money. If we cannot understand this, we will never understand what is going on in the economy, and has been going on since the inception of money as an economic device. Perhaps the greatest intellectual failure economists made was in exaggerating the difference between money and barter, between bartering with a verifiable unit of value and with items with floating values. Money gives us a fixed value, or so we thought. But as alluded to above, it is just a particular type of product designed to give those who are bartering goods, at least one product with a digital aspect. Everything can be given a dollar value because the dollar is infinitely divisible. It becomes akin to a store of value in the sense that once we have sold a bullock for $2,567 we can take this value and barter it for something else. Of course, money does not actually keep value stable as might be hoped were it truly a store of value. In fact, given hyperinflation, and money is the last place one would wish to try and store value. Economists blame the overprinting of money for inflation. In their phrase, inflation is too much money chasing too few goods. It was of course an impossible temptation to have the ability to print unlimited amounts of money and not do it. So, the printing press was taken from governments and given to banks. Banks do not even have the cost of paper to worry about, they only need a computer terminal and they can produce unlimited amounts of money with a few keystrokes. The only thing deterring them from doing this is that producing unlimited amounts of money makes money hyperinflate, which makes the collection of interest unproductive. The money used to pay off loans has become, through hyperinflation, valueless. Banks as profit-producing institutions need money to retain its value, or at least only lose value at a conservative pace. Banks do not want hyperinflation. In contrast, hyperinflation is a friend of those who have the printing press, because as bad as hyperinflation is, it is always less bad for the first-tier consumers such as the state. Producing $5 trillion in new spending would collapse most economies, but the one who acquired the $5 billion would have the power of a dollar prior to what it would be worth after the money had been spent. So, hyperinflation was not the evil the worker thinks it is, not for the people who owned the printing press. But the bank needs to lend out money, and it needs to be paid back whilst the money is still within the spread defined by the interest rate. A bank that lends out money at the rate of 22% would not wish to see the value of money lose its value at a higher rate before the loan is paid off. That being said, where does the money to pay off the interest come from? If your neighbor gives you a special cake and tells you that he needs it back with an extra layer on top in a month, what do you do if you have no idea how to make the cake? What if what he lends you is patented, and you do not have the rights to produce a patented product? How do you repay the use of the patented product in double the amount you received? In short, if the economy only has the money, you borrowed and you pay it back, how do you pay back the interest owing? Interest is always inflationary. Even if the products available have doubled and the money supply has only increased by 10%, the price of products will not be reduced to reflect the relative decline in the money supply. Prices decline because of productivity increases, not because of a reduction in the money supply. Velocity can always mitigate reductions in supply. What mankind has so far been unable to escape, is his association of value with assets. This is why there is almost a reverence for gold. There remains a sizable group of persons who would like to see a return to the gold standard or even to gold coinage. They seem oblivious to the well-documented problems of such a move. Perhaps they are motivated more by self-interest than by logic. Yet there is only one path to truth, and that is logic. It might appear strange to argue that our metaphysics or lack thereof has relevance to how we think of money, but a causality mindset will tend to dispose a person to see money in a physical way. This is especially so for those who still yearn to see a return to the gold standard, or even to hard currency coinage. All of the problems with this kind of currency is minimized in the thought of a type of money one can hold on to and see its value in the sticker price. But is money a way to calibrate value or a commercial venture? Is money just something we can use to express the value of something, or something we can manufacture, advertise, and buy and sell on the open market? If the latter, then it is nothing more than a highly specialized commodity designed specifically to facilitate barter. It ought to be called money even if it substitutes for money. A stack of books used to prop up a table with a broken leg is not a table leg even if it is used in the place of the original leg. The truth of this is not just seen in the use of digital checking accounts created by banks, or printed script, published and issued by the state. We can see it even more clearly in the use of true commercial goods that are naturally digital, such as cigarettes, that get pressed into services as money, when other more conventional types are not available. We do not purchase miles before going on a trip, nor do we have to buy thousands of feet and inches to build a house. Why then do we have to buy dollars before we buy stuff with dollars? Why do we have to buy, or rent, dollars before we can hire people to do a job? Have you considered that in every house in every town and city there are jobs that need doing? Have you thought that in every one of these houses are people who could do some of these jobs? Well, have you also considered that the only thing which stops these jobs that need doing, being done by those who could do them, is that not enough of these people can afford to get the money that would enable them to hire the people to do these jobs who could then hire them to do jobs for them? In short, money does not facilitate trade. In the format it has, it prevents anyone from working for anyone who does not have the means to acquire money on the open market. This, for want of a better descriptor, is totally insane. Why cannot my neighbor paint my house when it needs painting? What is the logical issue that prevents me from getting my house painted? Let's see if you can think of a logical reason why a house that needs painting cannot get painted. Probably you will say something like, no one ought to be able to get their house painted if someone else cannot make a profit on the person doing the work. In other words, if I am to get something done, I must be able to hire someone, which means I must have some of the magic things that permit me to have things done for me. This is, as suggested above, absurd at least and probably insane. You might then suggest that if I get my house painted without having the magic things that allow this in this economy, everyone will be getting work done whether they have money or not. To which I reply, exactly, which means everyone is working and everyone is getting work done. An economy is not just everyone working, it is everyone being a consumer. The consumer and the worker are one and the same person. There is nothing more absurd than not being able to get work done until I or you can get some of these magic things from a bank or company. These magic things are not money, they are private products created to permit a certain class of people to insert themselves into the market. This thing we call currency is actually a way to privatize the market, to put the market into private hands. No one gets to enter the market unless they pay the toll at the gate, which is the cost of money. If you have to have money to enter the market and it is banks and the state that control the money supply, they have a leash on everyone, because at some point if you want to survive in anything but the most primitive of ways, one must operate within the guidelines set by the state and its allies. Money makes the subject of a nation a fiduciary of the system. A fiduciary is an individual or organization that has a legal or ethical duty to act in the best interests of another party, typically in situations involving trust, confidence, and responsibility. In financial and legal contexts, fiduciaries are required to manage assets or make decisions with the utmost good faith, loyalty, and care, always prioritizing the interests of those they serve above their own. Subjects to participate in the market must ultimately put the interests of the market ahead of their own, and in so doing, put the interests of those who control the market ahead of their own interests. Money is a measure of value. This means it cannot have value. We cannot make measuring sticks from rubber nor odometers out of windmills. There is, despite what everyone thinks, no inherent value in any asset. Gold, diamonds, oil and all other things have zero natural value. They had no value before human beings and would have no value were we no longer around. Humans create value and we do this through work. This will be contested as it has been, but there is only one source of value and that is work. Work adds value to assets. This value added to assets by work is referred to as equity. Equity can be measured. A common measure of value is preferred shares. Common shares are voting shares and give the possessor a say over how the company's assets are to be allocated. Preferred shares refer to the equity of the company. This is created by the work employees do. As is the case with all measuring systems, the measure of value is arbitrary. We can say that an hour's work is worth 22 preferred share units. Work done is then paid at a rate of 22 Russian ruble, where is the symbol for preferred shares. Preferred shares can be contracted to prefers and designated by the symbol. By this simple strategy we have a monetary system that is stable, no subject to either inflation or deflation, and is available precisely where needed in the quantities needed, without the need for interest charges or state regulations. If I need my house painted, I contract to have it painted. The painter is paid for the time it takes to paint a house. It is the painters' union or guild that pays the painter. My account is debited the amount deposited into the painter's account. It is up to my guild or citizens' assembly to see I get the work I need to pay off the debit. Thus anyone can get the work they need done. There is no unemployment because the citizen assemblies ensure everyone has work. This happens because everyone is getting the work done they need done, and this creates all the work the people need. Money, therefore, is simply a unit of account. Money is just a tool that tracks what people spend and what they earn. In other words, money only measures credits and debits and has no intrinsic value, thus cannot be stolen or scammed.